Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are tearing into some deeply fascinating source material that attempts to completely shatter the mainstream narrative about this massive wave of UFO and UAP leaks. You know the official story, right? That the government is suddenly feeling generous and pushing for transparency? Well, according to the complex documents we're analyzing today, that is a total illusion. The texts argue the government isn't releasing UFO files because they want to. They are leaking them because the Earth's magnetic field is rapidly collapsing and their frequency suppression grid is physically breaking down. They're not benevolent, they're in absolute panic.
So let's really dive into this material and see how it completely reframes everything you thought you knew about the disclosure movement. The sources outlined a scenario where the world's elite aren't just willingly handing over the keys to the kingdom. Instead, the texts argue that the very physical, mechanical infrastructure of their control system is literally falling apart.
To understand why this is happening right now, the authors point straight to real-world geophysics. The sources cite some pretty startling NOAA data from 2025, claiming that the Earth's magnetic poles are currently drifting at an unprecedented 55 kilometers per year. According to the documents, our planet's magnetosphere is weakening at an incredible speed. They specifically highlight the South Atlantic anomaly, this massive expanding weak spot in the Earth's magnetic field that apparently has geophysicists on absolute high alert. The sources don't present this as just some random weather event. They describe it as a massive, thermodynamically guaranteed planetary reboot.
Which leads us right into Section 1, the Archonic Frequency Quarantine.
Now here is where the source material drops the ultimate extraterrestrial twist. It asserts that the moon isn't just a rock. It actually operates as a massive orbital broadcast tower. Its mechanical function, the authors claim, is to project a localized suppressor field, what they call a veil, right over the Earth. But here's the critical physics outlined in the text. This Archonic moon broadcast physically relies on the Earth's magnetic field to act as its carrier wave. Think of our magnetic field like the invisible wire plugging in their control grid.
By constantly bathing the planet in extremely low frequency, or ELF waves, the documents assert this system artificially overrides the Earth's natural Schumann resonances. And the result? The texts claim it literally traps human consciousness in a low-frequency state of fear, anger, and absolute compliance. But remember that collapsing magnetosphere we were just talking about? Because the Earth's magnetic shield is rapidly dropping, the text argues this archonic veil is literally tearing apart. It's losing its carrier wave. It physically can't maintain the quarantine anymore.
And that brings us to Section 2, the 110 Hz Guardian Grid.
So the crucial question the sources raise is this: what happens when this suppressor field glitches and fails? What replaces that artificial frequency of fear? Well, as the veil tears, the text suggests an ancient 110 Hz Guardian frequency is naturally bleeding back onto the surface of the planet. According to the documents, this frequency isn't random. It's actively generated by a massive, subterranean megalithic grid, ancient underground temples mathematically engineered as psychoacoustic oscillators to broadcast exactly 110 Hz.
And what's wild is the hard neurobiology the authors used to back this up. They point directly to Dr. Ian Cook and a team of neuroscientists at UCLA who ran comprehensive MRI studies back in 2008. They mathematically proved that when a human is exposed to this exact 110 Hz frequency, it physically suppresses the fear-based left temporal lobe. It quite literally forces the brain out of a survival state and hyperactivates the prefrontal cortex, triggering profound intuition and highly coherent consciousness.
Okay, let's move to Section 3, activating the receiver phenotype.
The source material constantly connects this massive global geophysics right back down to your own human biology. The text outlined this epic theory that your physical body is actually divine, resonant quantum hardware. In this framework, they argue your brain acts as the tuner, and your DNA functions as a literal fractal antenna.
You know how for decades, mainstream science told us that like 97% of our genetic code was just useless junk DNA? Well, the documents heavily emphasized the 2012 ENCODE project, which proved that at least 80% of this non-coding genome is actually a highly active biochemical control panel. The source texts refer to this as the dormant human 1.0 operating system. And as that archonic veil tears, they theorize your junk DNA as acting as a quantum receiver that is actively decrypting right now.
To really drive this antenna theory home, the sources point to Russian biophysicist Dr. Peter Garyev's phantom DNA replication studies. His work suggested that DNA isn't just some static molecule, it acts as a highly resonant field. When he exposed DNA to natural, healthy Earth frequencies, like the 7.83 Hz human resonance, the DNA's phantom signal intensity increased by a massive 41%. The authors use this to argue that your DNA actually powers up when it finally gets exposed to natural frequencies.
According to the outline, this brilliantly illustrates what the sources called the receiver phenotype coming online all over the globe. The Archonic veil drops, the 11 Hz grid bleeds through, and your highly sensitive biological antenna receives the signal. The documents propose that millions of humans are literally having their consciousness upgraded in real time, suddenly allowing them to process high-frequency reality.
Pivoting now to Section 4, Meltdown, Deep State Endgame.
So how does the control system react to a fully awakened global population, according to these texts? Well, they panic. The texts argue that the elites aren't pushing UFO disclosure as some benevolent psyop, they are simply out of time. To escape the incoming shift, the sources claim the intelligence apparatus is desperately melting deep underground bunkers to hide in. The sources highlight U.S. Patent 3693731A, the nuclear subterrane. By using a compact nuclear reactor, this machine heats a tungsten tip to over 1500 degrees Celsius, completely melting solid bedrock into liquid magma, and leaving a permanent glass-lined tunnel without any excavated rubble for satellites to spot.
But while they're literally running for the hills and hiding under them, the texts claim they need a massive distraction for everyone left on the surface. The documents contrast what they call true ancient guardian technologies, which acted as solid-state resonant transducers, with the deep state's frantic attempts to project fake sky shows.
And they bring the receipts for this, setting real military patents for laser-induced plasma, like U.S. Patent 2020-01412336A1. By crossing high-powered lasers in midair, the technology causes a dielectric breakdown of the atmosphere, creating floating, glowing balls of superheated plasma. The documents allege they are quite literally drawing 3D glowing UFOs in the sky to confuse and distract a rapidly waking populace. Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, the inevitable human victory. Despite the underground bunkers and the laser-induced sky shows, the source material frames this exact moment as the apocalyptic victory lap for humanity. The sources map out a rapid, cascading failure of the entire Archonic system. The Earth's magnetic field drops. The moon broadcast totally loses its carrier wave. The 110 Hz guardian frequency floods the surface. Your DNA decrypts the source code, and the global quarantine collapses completely. The text suggests that your awakened consciousness is the absolute ultimate weapon, and it's exactly what the elite are terrified of. The texts insist the time loop is closing right now. Humanity is waking up. Because the underlying geophysics of the planet are shifting in ways no one can stop, the deep state's defeat is, according to these fascinating documents, thermodynamically and mathematically guaranteed.
Which leaves us with the ultimate question posed by all this incredible material. If the quarantine is collapsing, if the veil is actually tearing, and your DNA is indeed an active, awake quantum antenna, what reality are you going to choose to broadcast? Keep questioning everything, keep exploring, and I'll see you on the next explainer.